Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another political episode. So, we are back with some big news, and we have to cover the story again because we got a huge win for the Trump administration. This is probably his biggest win in probably his whole presidency, and it can continue to be a huge win if the plan continues to go. But the good news is we already got a big win, and we have a chance, an opportunity to make it a bigger win, and we will have time to explain more about that. But we got to share the big news that the hostages are coming home. We talked about a story that basically saying that we got framework that would bring the hostages home set. We talked about that framework. I want to believe it was last week. This week on, this week I want to believe it's Thursday, October 9th. We can project that the hostages will come home as soon as expected to be released on Monday. And it looks like that this is going to be a thing. And the question is, will this continue to become more of a thing? Will we continue to incentivize and more peace in the Middle East? This is obviously, we got to go talk about the peace plan that has been put into place, but you just have to make this clear that a lot of people are celebrating this huge win. It's a win for everyone. It's a win for the Gazans. It's supposed to be a win for the pro-Palestinians, but I doubt they're celebrating because you know why? It's no doubt about it. They're not really pro-Palestine. They are pro-left, and they will grift on anything that will give the left momentum, and they said the perfect thing is going to be Palestine, and it is. It is the most perfect opportunity for them. And as this has been a 80-year conflict, and they're having a hard time grasping the fact that, I don't think this conflict is ending, but the so-called genocide, quote, quote, may be ending. And they have nothing else to grift on. You'll see Crystal Ball, the wife of Kyle Kulinski, just released a tweet that basically told us, well, she's feeling deep inside. There is no doubt a deal that leaves Israel occupying Gaza. It provides no guarantees that they won't immediately return to genocide. It's a nightmare deal, but these people need some relief from pain and starvation. Pain, starvation, and death. So obviously, if Crystal Ball really cared about the Palestinians and the Gazans, like she always whines and cries about on Breaking Point and on the Crystal and Kyle show, she would be celebrating this. She would be saying this is good, but she is already jumping to a hypothetical that has been denied. President Trump has already said that there would be no Israeli governance, no annexation of Gaza whatsoever. And I think I didn't add that, but no Israeli occupation of Gaza, and it may be out of order, but as long as it's on there. But look, and plus, we're even playing with the idea of a possible path for Palestinian statehood. So Crystal Ball is grasping for straws. She is not happy. She is fuming. She is very mad and very upset that this narrative, which has very well benefited her political ideology and giving them momentum, is coming to an end. This genocide, although the conflict itself may still exist, but hopefully not for long. If this peace process continues, it goes this way, I don't know. I have very little thoughts that, it looks like President Trump is trying to try to be like a Woodrow Wilson, his 14 points and all that stuff. We do know that there was an attempt for permanent peace called the Oslo Accords, launched by Norway, and it only resulted to fighting once again. Didn't really, because both sides, Israel and Palestine, want an independent state. And I have news for you two countries. You're not getting one, okay? Israel is not getting a state unless they invade. And we know if they invade, then Iran and Syria are going to attack. And they expect us to protect them. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Sorry, no. And plus, I don't think we would let them invade, because we are also saying there would be no occupation of the West Bank also. So basically, to Crystal Ball's naive stupidity, I have something to tell you. The borders aren't changing. It's going back to what it was on October 7th, kick rocks. And yeah, she loves this war. She loves it. She loves talking about this war. Notice, the people that love talking about what's going on in Gaza are the people that are mad about this deal. They're mad because they honestly like it. They like the war because they're getting money and power from it. So, and Crystal Ball is one of those people. She is a huge diehard Palestine activist who does not care about the genocide whatsoever. She is using this as a pawn to inject left-wing propaganda and left-wing socialism, etc. So, obviously, she is very upset about this news. She does, and the worst of all, it's actually coming from Trump, her worst enemy. So that's another thing that she's mad about. And she does not hope. She's actually trying to root against this deal. She is praying and hoping that this deal falls apart, so that she can enjoy using the dead bodies of Gazans and Palestinians to fuel as gasoline, to fuel her left-wing ego, to fuel her left-wing agenda, so and keep that going. So this is the sinister truth behind these people. They do not care about this. They will create the narrative that, Palestinians are the struggling working class people, and Israelis are the oppressors. They're the white, rich, right-wing oppressors, and they're trying to conquer, imperialistly and fascistly conquer the working class, poor Gazans. This is their narrative. This is like the I wouldn't say the Ten Commandments, but the biblical scripture of the Marxists. And plus, you do have the Communist Manifesto, which basically is the biblical scripture. But yep, they're just taking what the Communist Manifesto says, and they're applying it to this conflict. So, honestly, I really, really hope that this peace deal takes effect. We can go over each one in the realism that this will end up happening. So far, we got this one, okay? We can actually color this green, all right? We got this done, all right? We got the hostages released, dead or alive. The war will immediately end. Now, I think this would be, obviously, in both countries' best interest. I think we're on a path to end the conflict, but it will be determined on the rest of these here. So, and part of this will be long-lasting peace. Now, we can wait on this for now. We could put this in yellow for wait. But Israel will release 250 life sentenced plus 1,700 Gazans. Now, these people, I don't think this will be a problem. We did release Yahya Sinwar. I mean, Israel, not we. We didn't do it. Yahya Sinwar he was released by Israel, and he's dead. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. But this is I think it's a possibility that we would be releasing the 250 life sentence, unless we could find a different deal on that. Possible amnesty for Hamas. Basically what this allows is, this is in exchange for their rockets and their missiles. So we take away their rockets. What is amnesty, you might be wondering? I don't know. I would imagine, thinking, okay, the crimes you've done, Hamas will be erased, which is, I support anything that would allow to incentivize peace. So we'll go ahead and put this yellow, that we don't necessarily know this is going to hold up. but there would be no governance, but no Hamas governance in Gaza, meaning Hamas would not have any leadership. They've been playing with handing it out to an independent entity. What would that mean? I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. Then again, we tend to think of Hamas as just not a terrorist group, but just an entity that just wants power and control. They are not only a revolutionary governing group, but we'll go ahead and see how that goes. No Israeli occupation of Gaza. That was never going to be a thing. Netanyahu was talking about it, and that was not going to happen. The West Bank thing, not going to happen. Oh, I'm so sorry, Crystal Ball. I'm so sorry that your conflict, the occupying Gaza and returning to the genocide is not going to happen because, first of all, Israel's going back out. They're moving out of Gaza. Unless there's a bunch of Gazans in Israel, there's nothing much to take, right? Temporary transitional government in Gaza, which would be led by the UN. I'm especially excited about this because this would guarantee Gaza to be go on track to possibly being a sanctuary of a peaceful sanctuary. Now, the left will take this and they're going to try to run with this. Okay, their narrative will be imperialism, conquest, American conquest, blah 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 blah. This is what Crystal Ball will say. That the transitional government Gaza being run by European countries like France and all these European nations, Norway, Ireland, Germany, Italy, they're conquering the Gazan people. This is so bad. This is what they're trying to do and they're trying to grasp for straws because there's nothing else to grasp for. And the truth is, the UN there has been a peace council once in East Timor, because in East Timor, Indonesia invaded East Timor. They occupied the country, then they let it go, and they gave it up to a UN-controlled transitional government. And eventually, East Timor became its own country. Now, do I think Gaza would become its own country? No. For one thing, I just think they're just not only too destroyed, but I just think they're too dense, and it's not going to work. Out of everything, it would still remain a part of the UN. A board of peace would be established by President Trump and led by Tony Blair, who is, of course, the former Prime Minister of Britain. And I would say this would be very possible for that to happen. And then here's the one that I don't think will happen. I don't think a possible statehood for Palestine. And I would say it's going to be leaning not likely. Mainly because, let's be honest, Israel is committed to keeping all the land. And that's kind of difficult. I think it would be more easier to convince the Palestinians that, look, you're just going to have the West Bank and Gaza, and that's all you get. Israel is just going to have the land. But Israel is committed. It's mainly due to their ideology, their Zionist ideology. Zionism mainly teaches about Jewish home rule over Canaan. And Canaan is, of course, Israel. And meaning that all Canaan territories must be Israeli, including all of Jerusalem. So that's Zionism. And because that's so rooted into Israeli government, I find it to be very difficult that the Israelis are going to actually take this and say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to accept a statehood path of statehood for Palestine. Even though, at this point, I can care less. I really can care less, folks, if Palestine became a state. As long as they're friendly, I can care less. Because let's be honest, I'm tired of this conflict. I am done. This has gone on for how many? How many wars were fought? How many wars? Well, you have the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. You had the Suez Crisis. You had the 6-Day War. Then you had the War of Attrition. Then you had the Yom Kippur War. You got the Intifadas, the first and second and third, or whatever, how many Intifadas there were. And then there were also the Gazan Wars in the early 2000s. And now you have this Gaza War. Ridiculous, right? Are we tired of this? You got 8 wars. I counted it by my fingers. 8 wars. 8 wars involving this conflict. I'm tired. I am done. It is absolutely ridiculous. And, I think shooting for the whole end of this whole entire conflict is a long shot. I clearly understand what President Trump's motives are, but if we could try to end the bloodshed, end the war, I think it is very well possible that we can ensure peace. So really, I do think we can pull this. I think we can pull it off. I think both sides want peace. Stop the bloodshed, stop the war, stop the killing, and just revert everything back to before October 7th, 2023. But can we end this whole entire conflict? Well, I do think you'll have to ask Palestine I think their best interest is not being annexed by Israel. I think they should be happy that they got the West Bank and they got Gaza, and they're not going to take out the Israelis. Even though we got radical countries like Iran saying that they're probably the only one. I mean, they're probably the only country. I mean, you got Syria, but Syria has gotten Syria just wants to be let alone. Syria cares more about the Kurds. Out of everything, they're not attacking Israel. Israel's attacking them. And they had zero intentions to attack. So I do think that, hey, look, if we just recognize an independent, that's going to have to be talked about. But if an independent Palestinian state exists, well, every Arab state would probably be happy, except for Iran, and we'll go from there. Iran doesn't care about this conflict because they just want us out of the Middle East. But there is that also. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful we can get the conflict ending. And the good news is we got the hostages released. Now, we got to stop the war immediately after we agree. And what's going to help determine the end of the war? Well, path for statehood for Palestine I don't think has nothing really to do to end the war. But I do think a temporary transitional government in Gaza should be in everyone's interests. I think Israel's interests, Hamas, I would assume, hopefully, they should really have no problem with it. They're weakened. This wouldn't be a problem. This would never be a thing. They were talking about it, and we said no. Okay? No Hamas governance in Gaza, obviously. That will never be a thing. Amnesty will everything should work except for the amnesty and the path to statehood. Amnesty for Hamas. What does that even mean? We're going to have to ask questions, like maybe we're doing exemptions, saying like, hey, look, Hamas, you committed a lot of crimes, but we're giving you a pass on this one. We're giving you a pass. And that's something we might have to do in order to ensure peace. Because there's just the death toll is just too high to continue to let this happen. So, but the question is, will Israel accept it? They're gonna have to. And I mean, the good news about this thing failing is we know President Trump will give a tongue lashing of Israel. Well, yeah, Israel's mainly going to be the biggest problem. I would say Hamas isn't it's Israel. It's Israel. A lot of this is going to be determinants of Israel, because the bottom one and the one in the middle are ones that Israel's probably saying, I don't know. But we'll say, in general, Hamas is just too weak. They're going to have to say okay to everything if they just want to continue to exist. I think they know that. But the good news, the victory here, is we got our hostages. Not our hostages, the Israeli hostages. And really, it's this one that could stop us from ending this war. It could. But we're hoping if we learn a little bit more about the amnesty, what that actually means, it won't be as bad. And this obviously would result to maybe Israel giving somewhat of a compromise in this. We're going to see how this goes. This plan might have to be adjusted. Otherwise, most of it is very good. I see a lot of green. Then there are yellow. And then there are red. But, one little issue, one little point, one little dash mark can tear down the whole entire plan. That's just how it is. That's how peace deals work. Oh, we love everything, but this one thing, it's just preventing us from carrying it to peace, trying to incentivize peace, and we don't think this is going to work. And it's frustrating. I want to believe that's what happened with the Russia and Ukraine thing. We will probably try again when it comes to that in the near future. But right now, all eyes are on Gaza. All eyes are in the Middle East. And, it's hilarious because just 1 year ago, for no reason whatsoever, 2009, Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize. For what? Winning the election? Winning the election because George Bush was just so bad? Congratulations, Brock! And they're like, oh yeah, Trump wants the Peace Prize. He might actually get one at this point. The Arab leaders are all in agreement that he should get one. The Benjamin Netanyahu has been a nominator. And now you just need the European leaders. And judging at this effort, he has really been recognized the president of peace. And I do know, we'll be reminded, Iran-Israel war, blah, 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 blah. Well, that one is in question. Was it Donald Trump that made the decision to bomb Iran, or was it the military-industrial complex? The thing I usually will say, jump to conclusions is that, presidents will be presidents, leaders will be leaders, and that sometimes you'll make reckless decisions on the world stage. But the mission has always been the intent. It's the intent that matters, and President Trump has spent hour after hour after hour just calling up these leaders. He doesn't have to do this. He really doesn't have to do this. Ukraine is not a NATO country. Ukraine's not our ally, guys. A lot of people don't know that. Ukraine is a strategic partner. But we have Democrats like Elizabeth Warren running around saying that they're our ally. No, they're not. They have never been defined as an ally. But we have people running around saying, oh, Ukraine's our ally, Ukraine's our friend, blah, 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 blah. We don't have to help them. They're not a part of NATO. We could be like, we're out. Article whatever it's called doesn't work because Ukraine is not a part of NATO. And despite that, NATO is still countlessly doing whatever they can to get involved in this conflict. It's ridiculous. Despite that, President Trump's still trying to get peace. Israel is not even a NATO country. They're our ally. That's something that's different compared to Ukraine. You want to talk about allies. Israel is an actual ally, not Ukraine. But like every other issue, we could have just let these two countries work it out. They usually do it. But this time, we recognized it's just too big. And we took the dramatic steps to incentivize peace. And hopefully, if we end this conflict, we can get Lebanon, we can get Israel out of Syria, and we can get Israel out of Lebanon. We can get a ceasefire set in stone with Hezbollah. We can get a ceasefire set with Syria. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. And man, I am looking forward to the peace. The one thing I love about President Trump is his anti-globalist policies. I just cannot stand the NATO alliance. It would not hurt me at all if we just left. In fact, I want that. We should begin dismantling the NATO alliance as soon as possible. Because believe it or not, this alliance is an act of war against Russia. It's clearly always been the case. Mobilization against a country is an act of war. And when you mobilize 40 countries, 30 countries against one country, that is beyond an act of war. And give it to Russia. Give it to them. I'm being quite honest. They're holding it together because they know the consequences that there's going to be a World War III. And that just totally destroys the argument that Putin wants a world war, because he has the opportunity to start a world war because of NATO mobilization. And, he could just say, hey, look, NATO is an act of war. The existence of NATO is an act of war against us. We are going to declare war. Like, he's not doing that. So, but the globalists will be globalists. They're not going to be globalists. But I am 100% excited. And I'm looking forward to see those hostages released. And then we'll go and continue to get into phase 2 of the plan, which would possibly and very well result to the end of the war entirely. And, of course, the end of all the other stuff. And we'll see which ones will work and which ones won't. So anyway, thank you all for watching this video. I'll see you all in the next political episode.